All right, friends, what I'd like to do first is to ask you really what is important to you so I can kind of focus. And there are two slides that I want to look at, but just in terms of, I have some policies and procedures for you that are in the presentation. Again, if you need something deeper, I can either send you to other websites, other presbyteries. Actually, my previous presbytery has a whole host of policies that are, like 25 pages long, but are really helpful. And so instead of cutting and pasting those into this presentation today, I'll just send you there. But it's just, if you just, raise your hand and let me know where the hot topics are. So how much of you are interested in like the counters and counting cash and issues with cash? You raise your hand if you would, please, just so I get a good sense. All right. Anybody bring any cash today? No. Okay. What about reimbursement policy? Is that a concern? Okay, good. Vouchers and receipts, is that something important to you? Yes? Okay. How about investment policy? Okay, good. How about any information on church credit cards? Okay, don't get one. Let's move on. Want to talk about audits versus financial review? Good. All right. And then also, how about stewardship? Yes? All right, some of you in the back haven't raised your hand, so either you don't think I can see you, or I haven't hit the hot note yet. Per capita. Everybody loves per capita. You don't want to talk about per capita? Come on. Okay, and then how about online giving, apps, pros and cons? Yes, okay. So I'm not covering any of these things today. All right, friends, so you probably know this, and you know the difference between may and shall, right? If it says shall, you got to do it, right? So the Book of Order says you shall elect a treasurer. You should probably do it every year to make sure they are still breathing and happy to do the job. And also then delegate work to either the trustees, if you have trustees, or to the deacons. Again, the funds should be reported at least annually. I suspect most of you bring those numbers to your session every month, right? Okay, good. You may provide standard practices, but you shall observe these three things. All offerings should be counted and recorded at least with 2 duly appointed persons or 1 fidelity bonded person. Now, I know you know this. Because we're being recorded, I'm not going to call you by name, but I know some churches still don't abide by that. Okay, that's great news because it's really important to do that, to keep everything clean and tidy. As we say, the Book of Order is beautiful because it protects churches from pastors and pastors from churches. And unfortunately, I know from experience that sometimes if people are not paying attention to the details, you can get yourself in a bunch of hot water, and that's not good and it's not of God. The other two are that the books and reports shall be kept and open for inspection. Again, I think this is very obvious. I'm just clarifying it. And then, again, in no case less than annually should the activities be made or kept from the session. Financial oversight is really important. How many of you are doing this on a regular basis? Is there anyone not doing this? Wonderful. Okay. Here's the deal with cash. Have your office admin track the petty cash in one way or another. And don't have more than $40 because you don't really need anything for cash any longer. For me, I say pastors should never handle cash. Here's some examples. Oh, pastor, I forgot to put this in the offering plate. Can you? No, thank you. I don't want to touch it. Give it to an officer of the church or the treasurer. Hey, I forgot to reimburse so and so for. Can you? No. Hands off the cash, right? We want to avoid giving cash to any person in need, especially if they come to the church and they're struggling. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already, buy gift cards in increments of 25, 10, whatever you want for either the local stores around your community or generic. And make sure that you have a policy, if you don't already, for how you handle this for members versus non-members. So far, so good, right? You guys are doing most of this? Fantastic. Okay. This is a reimbursement policy sample. It comes from the Presbytery of the Highlands. And I'm really not going to read it to you, but I'm just going to give you a few moments to absorb it because there's a couple of pages. Yes, of course.
Would it be possible for you to email us this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think Casey and I haven't talked about the logistics of that, but I'll either post it on I'll have it posted on your website, or he can e-blast it to you. I mean, it's my intellectual property, but it's okay. I mean, half of it's the Book of Order anyway. So. All right. So again, this is a great. If you don't have a policy in place already, this is really helpful, especially if you have new officers coming on, if you have a new pastor. This is a really good time to sort of get these things buttoned up. And here's the second part of the policy. Yes.
Question, does the person asking for the reimbursement need to know the committee associated with that expense, or can that be determined by?
So it'd be really great if you can set that up with your session and your deacons so that you have a sense of who's responsible. So generally, in a church that has a session that even if there are committees of one, the chair signs the receipt. But if that person is out of town and need reimbursement, then you generally go to the chair of finance. That's sort of the operations person. Now, I stole this from my previous church. Don't tell them. But this is a really great voucher. And it's already, I think I can get it to you in electronic form so that Excel is embedded in it. And then it does all the math for you. But there are even drop-down areas. So this is an electronic one. So if you can't get to the church, you just send this out to your officers. And then every time they need it, they fill it in, zip it back to the church, get somebody to sign off on it. And that really speeds things up and makes things a lot more clear. Does this look familiar to you all? Is this helpful? Okay, good. Need a few more minutes to look at it? You good? All right. Let's talk about investment policies. Again, this is from the Presbytery of the Highlands. So I'll allow you to take this and then you can reformat it for your particular church. But again, you want to make sure you have a basic objective, that funds should be available as soon as possible, full advantage of making sure everything is tax exempt, right? And then this is a key piece. If you've been a Presbyterian for a while, you know that we've had a lot of conversations at the General Assembly about investment practices and moving away from, there's a Southern, sin stocks. Have you heard that term? The Southerners call them sin stocks, which are alcohol, tobacco, firearms. What's that?
I'm surprised to have hear firearms included.
Yeah. So this changes every General Assembly, but that's a really important one for you to number 4 to pay attention to.
Are we doing that? Because I actually asked about that about getting away from some on social media stocks, and our financial advisor advised against pulling out of them because they're lucrative. But I don't know what the Presbytery has to say about it.
The Presbytery only gives guidance, does not give instruction.
Right.
So that's a discernment for your own session to determine.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and of course it's changing, and we'll hear a lot more GA this summer about where it's at. I mean, I think TikTok is even in trouble right now, and there's lots of discussion about TikTok. So I think that's for your session or your financial committee to determine.
I would say if you're in a diversified portfolio, you're going to be exposed to all these areas. I wouldn't recommend individual stocks.
No, I don't think, again, this is a general policy just to sort of cover the waterfront, and this is only half the policy. Here's the rest of it. Again, number 5 just speaks to exactly what you're talking about and what you were talking about as well, right? So maintain with consistent purpose of goals. And then again, corporations inconsistent with the stand of the church, products harmful to persons or the social environment, which the fact of the matter is it's really hard to keep it that squeaky clean, but I think just to make the effort to do that, I think is important, and to have those conversations. I mean, when I was on the floor of the GA 15 years ago, I mean, the conversations were so intense, and this is when, Caterpillar was on the mark or on the blocks. as I was saying earlier, money is a very personal thing, including where we put our money in our congregations and how we invest that. And we want to make sure that our money is going in the right direction, but we don't always agree on how that works, right? So you have to do the best you can. Again, this is the policy, and then you can fine tune it, but at least you got some place to start from, and it's really helpful. Because starting from scratch is difficult, and if you get a bunch of folks that are interested in investments in a room, you're going to have to call in for a couple of pizzas and a couple of beds, because it's going to take a long time. So this is a great starting point, and then you can alter as you need to. Any other questions about this? Yes?
I think the Presbyterian Foundation has various funds also that churches can consider that are considered ethical and green often, and they have a pretty good rate of return. Covenant Fund?
New Covenant. Yeah, I'd highly recommend them as well. Some of the returns at the foundation are not so hot right now, and we've had some trouble getting answers as to why, especially with the interest rates being so high right now, why some of our funds at the church I serve are a little anemic. But overall, I think they're a good, I mean, they know what they're doing. I mean, they have $20 billion in assets under management. I mean, you know, they're not hacks, but not everything is rosy all the time. Any other questions about this? All right. Okay, credit card policy elements. First of all, if you don't have a church credit card, don't get one. At my previous church, I spent probably 6 or 8 months, and you're an attorney, so you understand this, right? So we had an attorney and a financial review person and a like all the smartest people in the church in the same room. It took us almost a year to come together on a credit card policy. And then there's these arguments as to why the church needs a credit card. Can you think of examples where the church could benefit from having a church credit card?
Things that are recurring payments, like your social media accounts, Facebook and all that stuff. Just
Zoom.
it's automatic. Exactly.
Yep. Because that way you don't have to keep reimbursing someone on the staff. Other ideas for when a credit card is useful?
Well, I hate to say it, but Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tax exempt.
Yeah, office supplies,
Otherwise,
all that.
it's the least expensive, easiest way, things get delivered, it's
Yep.
all set up, done.
Exactly right.
Not every parishioner who's entrusted with making purchases is able to front the purchase on their card
Right.
or with cash.
You bet. Yeah, so that's where it gets a little tricky, because sometimes you have people who don't have the ability to make that purchase. I personally, as a pastor, recommend that if Linda doesn't have, no, I'm not picking on you, Linda, but Linda, if you're paying 3 college tuitions and you can't front $500 for a new copier, right? Find a friend who can, because otherwise then you get into this discussion about who on session deserves to get a credit card. And the fact of the matter is, we have some people on session and on our staffs who love to shop. I mean, the amount of stuff that we have for Santa's workshop is just insane, right? So you have to really vet. So I'd highly recommend that the church credit card only be for a church admin and for the pastor for pastoral expenses. And then, because also elders rotate either every year or if you're lucky, every 3 years, right? But you get into muddy waters, and then there's arguments as to, well, gee, Elizabeth, we trust Elizabeth, so we gave her a credit card, but we didn't trust Dolores or Doreen. Dorinda, because Dorinda loves to shop.
Told you the opposite, but yeah.
It's really the opposite? Okay. But you know what I mean? Yeah.
Wait,
Go ahead. Yes.
so, I am the treasurer, and I would like her to have one. We've never done that because I'm always, she's always buying worship supplies and
Mm-hmm.
Bible study materials. So, and you're saying yay or no? Yay or?
So do you have wait, are you the admin?
She's a treasurer.
Oh, you're treasurer. Okay. Do you have a church, even a part-time admin?
No.
Okay. Do you have a worship committee?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where, see, it's usually worship that has to buy all the supplies that are necessary for the church. Sometimes it's also the outreach or the evangelism committee that sometimes needs supplies. Let me get you into the rest of this, and then you can see. So we've got a section on limitations, and And this is also really helpful. So no more than $250 at a pop, right? This is not applied to pastors who have expenditures inside their terms of call. And then obviously the voucher has to get signed by the personnel chair. So this is a case-by-case basis, but the voucher is the checks and balances of it to make sure that the worship supplies are valid and that they're necessary. Again, I trust you, Dorinda, but maybe, sometimes pastors get a little carried away and they want to get the wax candles, instead of the small little throwaways and stuff like that. So again,
Question?
yes.
When you say personnel chair needs to sign the voucher, I'm guessing that might be able to be delegated to some other chair?
Well, none of the reimbursable expenses for that have to do with terms of call.
No, I'm just looking at the third one yeah.
Right. So this has to do with the pastor's expenditures that are in the terms of call.
Okay, I was thinking that it might not be the pastor, but it might be communion, grape juice, or whatever.
So again, that would be the worship chair.
Okay.
Or if the worship chair makes the purchase, then you have someone else on the worship committee. If it's a committee of one,
Yep.
then I would probably recommend the
So whatever it applies to, that chair should sign off on.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and that way again you can track the expenses. But again, the default is always your finance chair. Hopefully, yes.
I just wanted to say that we've had situations where one card doesn't have the individual's name on it, because sometimes cards like Staples were issued with no names, and then we got fraudulent charges from somewhere else, like someone duplicated that card in California.
Yeah.
So that matching of the receipts helps with that too, so you can see.
Yeah, exactly. But again, in this day and age, I would highly recommend that you only, if you're going to do this, get rid of Staples, get rid of an Amazon card, get rid of Michaels, and Cokesbury. I'm not even sure Cokesbury. I guess they're starting to take now credit cards, but for a while it was just in-house accounts, right? So I would recommend getting rid of it because those are the ones that are most hackable, right? And if you get a credit card through a bank, they're going to probably get to catch it before you do. But we all unfortunately have to keep our eye on that all the time, which is a shame.
You referenced the finance committee chair a lot. That has to be separate from the treasurer?
Yes, because whether the treasurer is an employee or a volunteer, there's not a healthy checks and balances. Because when you come to, we're going next, which is audits versus financial review, the treasurer should be nowhere near signing off on all those things because the treasurer has the access to all your assets and to your bank accounts and your checks. Yeah.
So our financial secretary right now, or the bookkeeper, says that.
Wait, let's pause. So when I say financial secretary, that's
It's not that was
okay. Good, great. So
Okay.
bookkeeper slash
Bookkeeper,
treasurer. Gotcha.
yeah.
No,
Well, no.
bookkeeper is separate from the treasurer.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So she has said, because we've talked about getting a credit card, she said, well, somebody would have to be the point person. That somebody's credit is on. Is that right?
Yes.
So somebody individually has.
No, when you go to the bank, and
Yes.
it's I'll tell you, it's not easy to get a church credit card. It takes a bit. But the large banks like Chase, Bank of America, I wouldn't go to a small local S&L, but I go to a large bank and you have to bring your papers of incorporation, your tax ID, your nonprofit ID status, your firstborn. There's a lot of things in there that you need. But I would highly recommend that you go to the bank to do that, yeah.
What name goes on the credit card?
The First Presbyterian Church of, and then the secondary signator, which is my name, Jen Van Zandt.
So it would have two, the front of the card would say First Pres or Presbyterian Church, and then underneath,
Like my name.
Yep.
Somebody's.
Correct.
okay, and
Yep.
that would, okay.
Uh-huh. And it was just like I co-signed for my father, right? So I'm a signator of my father's Bank of America. So it says Stephen Van Zandt, and that's his name. He does not play the guitar. And he's from New Jersey.
Okay.
He does not wear a bandana. He's 95 years old. But let me tell you, when Stevie Van Zandt was hot, and my father, I didn't mean hot, I mean like successful.
Yes,
Turn this off for a minute. When he was successful and very active with Bruce Springsteen, and my father was younger, he would use his name and say, this is Steve Van Zandt. He did a good because all the Italian restaurants thought it was Stevie Van Zandt coming in. Then my father strolls in, this 75-year-old businessman. Oh, that's my table? Yeah. All right, I digress. There's a couple hands here. Yeah.
what about just a debit card from the bank, as opposed to a credit card? Is it better just to use the same kind of?
Well, so what you don't want to do is get into a cash situation, because then when you do your financial review, now you have to have a hard time accounting for cash, right? You don't want to do that yet.
I don't know about any other bank, but Wells Fargo, every sign on the account, because we have double signatures on the checks and redundancy, every sign on the account, they automatically issue them a card. We take the cards from everybody else and we keep them locked up. We don't use them. The only card that's used is the one with my name on it. I'm the president and the treasurer. And then we have this green form that you have to fill out for cash expenses. Well, I or anybody I give authority, like the pastor or the church office secretary, to use that card, they have to fill out what I call a yellow form, and they have to sign what they use it for. Other than recurring payments for, like you said, for like GoDaddy and all of those online.
Sure.
Other than recurring payments that are through the debit, if I do something with Amazon, it's a yellow form. If I need to take it and have to purchase anything for anybody else, it's a yellow form. So we try to, I decided I have to be signing off on something. I can't just be using the credit card without handing something over.
Yeah, so I'd really recommend that someone, if you're making the purchase, have someone else sign a voucher.
Right, if they make the purchase, okay,
right?
Double sign it.
Exactly, because that should pop up in your financial review.
Okay.
There was another question over here. Yeah.
I just want to comment on, I don't know if it's bank to bank, but regarding whose name goes on the credit card, and in my experience, it's with TD Bank, they require that my name be on the credit, because their explanation to me is because church is a nonprofit organization, so therefore the signature, the person that signs, is the credit on which that credit card exists.
If you're doing a credit
So
card.
I had to get comfortable with that to kind of.
So that's
your
an
credit.
interesting point. I suspect, and I'd have to really check to clarify this, but I suspect that the treasurer of my previous church, who's a member, he's not a paid treasurer, he probably put his name up there to do the credit check on in order to get the credit card and fill out the application. You're probably right about that. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Other questions about this? So again, I can share the policy with you, but it's about 7 pages. But again, it was vetted by an attorney and a few other people, so it's probably a whole pizza, not just a slice. All right, but it's everything you need is in there.
So I know we're talking about expenses and paying money out, but the other question that we've had is when we've done a fundraiser, we just recently did a couple of them. We had a rummage sale, we had a gala. And is there information or background that we can get about using services like Square and whether that would be appropriate for us to do? So that other people, so when I want to go buy some tchotchke at a rummage sale, I can say, here's, I don't have the cash, and just put it on my credit card, and the credit card have Square or whatever.
So you're asking about using the technology of Square?
Yes.
I have to tell you, I'm not familiar with it. I know that a lot of the very tall steeple churches do that as a kiosk for them to make payments when they come through the payments, when they make their contributions, when they come through the door. But I'd have to research that further to really be clear on that. I think the idea would probably not, you'd probably not want to use Square to buy a tchotchke for the church.
No, I'm talking about, we have a rummage sale, somebody,
Right.
I walk in off the street, and I say, I like that vase.
Credit card.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Accepting credit card.
Right.
Taking receipts.
You know, that's great, because you want to move away from cash as much as you possibly can, right? Yeah. Dorinda, you have a question?
I'm understanding what
I
Square
have
is.
no idea what.
Yes.
QR
Tap and go. Yes, ma'am.
Our social media person wants to tie us to PayPal. And I believe PayPal has, for nonprofits, where you can take money in through PayPal, but you don't have the ability to use it to buy things.
Right.
But I'm not sure, is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm going to get to that in a few minutes, because I have a little bit of an analysis. It's not, yeah. So again, credit card policy, it's about 7 pages, and then you just make it fit for you, but it's the whole kitchen sink in there. Okay, this is one of my bugaboos. Unless you have a certified working employed CPA, it is not an audit. It is always a financial review. Even if the person who's on your financial review team is a retired CPA, it is not an audit, it's a financial review. So just be aware of those differences. And the fact of the matter is, unless you've either bought or sold a lot of property, you don't need to do an audit. Or if you have big concerns about money being missing, yes, get a CPA firm in to do the audit. Unfortunately, Newark Presbyterian had some real issues with a pastor who was taking a loan from the Presbyterian and then buying all sorts of wonderful clothes and cars. God rest his soul. But you don't need a full audit, but you do need a financial review. So, your financial review committee has to have members in good standing, which I know sounds obvious, but it's important to make sure that that's the case. You want to make sure that the financial secretary and treasurer are not on that committee, all right, or close family members. You want an odd number of people, right?
Why is that?
Because of votes, if you find something that's really awkward, you don't want to have two people say, okay, if you agree and I agree, then we're good to go, right? You don't want that. You want to make sure you still meet in person because there's a lot of paper you have to go through. You can't do this by Zoom. I mean, for the final ending report, you might be able to, but you got to meet in person because the boxes of all the papers are a lot, yes? You have to give a report of your findings to the session, and that makes sure that, and you verify that no parties had a conflict of interest. There were no material conflicts, which means all is good, or you have to report the conflict and the suggestions or the resolution that's been made. Okay? And then, of course, that report has to also go on your annual report. Is this pretty obvious for you all? You seem like you're nodding your heads. And yeah.
Question regarding an audit versus a review. If the word audit, does it have any sort of like compliance or regulatory like requirement? Is there some ruling body that says you have to have an audit?
No, but most churches call their financial review an audit. I'm just clarifying for you that unless you have a CPA involved, it is not an audit, it's a financial review.
But what would cause a church to do an audit? Because you suspect something?
Yeah, because money's gone missing, you can't track it, or you're very concerned. Like I said, you've either bought a piece of property, sold a piece of property, had a major, you sold the man's, you bought another man's, then you just want to make sure that everything is good. Yes.
So Book of Order requires an annual financial review?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And audits are not a bad thing to have from time to time. They have a separate pair of eyes look at your internal controls.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you have the time and the energy to do that, I highly recommend it because then you can breathe easy, especially if there's a change in either a long-standing pastor or the financial secretary or the treasurer. It's a really good idea to do that. The back there. Okay. Okay, now my favorite topic. You ready? What do you think it is?
Budget.
Ding, 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 ding. Stewardship. This is my favorite topic to talk about. And we don't have much time, so I wanted to ask you all if you want to talk about this and if you want to lament together, or if you need some more ideas or you've got questions about how stewardship is changing. Because I do a lot of training with sessions about how to work with most of us, I think. You're not, but most of the rest of us are boomers, right? You're not a boomer, are you? No. You're probably Gen Z. No, I'm kidding. What's that?
Millennial.
Millennial, right. So what is your name?
Esther?
Esther? That's a great biblical name. So wouldn't you agree that the way your generation looks at finances and stewardship is very different from the generations before? Yeah, right. So I could talk all day about this, but giving money through the generations is a very different experience. And so instead of throwing a bunch of slides at you, why don't you throw some questions at me and I'll see if I can't help you in your individual situations. And then if it's really deep, then we can take it offline and talk about a campaign or how to get out of the ruts of those wonderful letters that come out in October. Yes?
That's the question. When you say stewardship, are you talking about encouraging giving, or are you talking about doing good with the money that you have? Or are you talking
This is about the annual giving stewardship campaigns.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So our church is going to go through a major transition. Our pastor's retiring in June. So we're anticipating some upheaval, obviously, because people were really attached to the pastor and he changed them in policy. How do we maintain like the constant giving that we have right now? Because we anticipate people either will leave or just stop giving during that uncertain time when you have an interim or things are just changing.
Right. So that's pretty typical, right? When the beloved pastor leaves, retires, or my beloved pastor passed away while he was still in the church. I mean, he wasn't physically in the church, but he died while he was installed. The best way to do it is get a jump on that and start to, there are some wonderful campaigns that you can do just monthly with monthly themes. And you can Google that. I think the GA probably still has those, but if not, just grab my email and I'll send them on to you. Some of the resources, unfortunately, are from the denomination, and they're a little old because they were developed by, no offense, old white men. Okay? And they have some nice ideas, but
that leaves all of us out.
Okay, good.
None of us are there.
And you're not in suits, so that's good. That's good. But a bunch of suits put these in. And I was going to the stewardship campaign, stewardship kaleidoscope every year, and I'm like, oh, really? I'm dying. So I love stewardship, and there's lots of fun things to do that don't have to be that whammo letter with the boring content. I did a campaign with the church I'm serving now at Christmas time around the themes of frankincense, gold, and myrrh. It was fun. People loved it. And here's the thing. We think we need to do campaigns hard and fast, September, October, so we can plan. Yeah, that's exactly right. So we can plan the budget. We know what our budget's going to be next year. It's going to be 10% less than it is this year. Or the same. Right? So there's lots of things that you can do to have fun with it and to get kids engaged. Another really cool one is if you can find, most of us have at least one very successful retired person in the church, right? Yes, most of you do. And what you do is you get him or her to loan the church a $20 bill for each family in the church. And say, go out and double it. And then everybody comes back and the kids love to do this because they'll make bracelets or they'll tie-dye t-shirts or they'll sell cookies. And then you're also keep teaching the kids about stewardship too, which is muy importante, right? Because that's, I mean, families and there are websites that just teach financial services to kids, like in their teens, like investment stuff. So it's never too early to teach children about money. Most importantly, giving our time, treasure, and talent to the Lord, to the church, because that then you start to make a more dedicated giver, because the 11-year-old is more interested in where that money is going than most of the other people in the pews. So there's lots of really fun campaigns, but I won't go on. Any other questions about stewardship?
Just a comment. We went through pastors, another pastor left, and also we had a big donation request.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought through all those transitions that people would say, oh, one, the pastor left, I'm leaving. We lost people, but the people that were there still contributed. And the bequest, we thought people would say, oh, you got a lot of money in the bequest, you don't need our money. But those things didn't happen that we thought might happen. So it might, it wasn't that. And we don't have a stewardship committee anymore because we don't have enough people. But that's another story.
Okay. I'll do some pastoral care with you at lunch. There was a hand. Yeah.
Rose Niles from the.
Yeah, she's the bomb.
And she actually, 2 takeaways from a recent discussion she had, I thought were very interesting. That stewardship has a lot of negative connotations oftentimes, and that it's flipping it and calling it a culture of generosity.
Sure.
And focusing in that area. And the other takeaway was that giving follows mission and vision.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it, sometimes stewardship isn't tied that well to the clarity of what is your mission and vision. Because people get behind what that may be, or they don't. But at least they're clear on what it is. And often it inspires. Giving.
So thank you for lifting that up. That's a really important piece. And I think, too, I come out of the training and development world, and so I did a lot of coaching with organizations on their mission statement. If you can't repeat it right now, then your mission statement is too long. And the mission statement, you spend months and months and months, or at a church retreat or what have you, and you come up with this stuff that's really rich to you. But if you can't repeat it to someone who's brand new and is church shopping, then it probably isn't serving you, number one. Number two, the culture of generosity comes out of the Henry Nouwen Society. You all know, Henry Nouwen? He's now deceased, unfortunately, but he was a Jesuit priest, and he finished out his ministry. He taught on the faculty of Harvard. He was at Yale. He finished out his teaching at Drew here in New Jersey. A very dear friend of mine actually was his administrative assistant, so I know some of the inside stories about him. But he was able to give communion every day to anyone who wanted it, and the Vatican still let him come back. He has over 30 books, but his society is still going strong, and he's the one who they coined the phrase culture of generosity. So I think that's the first one. Another one that you might want to look at, Nouwen, Nouwen, and that's just letting you know that we're halfway through our time together. Is it Not My or Not Your Father's Offering Plate is another really good book to take a look at that's helpful, because we want change and we want things to be new and exciting, but we want things to stay the same, right? And so the stewardship thing is easy because it's just a little bit of a shift and hopefully getting better results. And it brings some excitement, it brings some energy, it brings some enthusiasm, it brings some playfulness. And again, if you're getting the youth and the kids involved, that's a home run. That's a home run. Other questions or thoughts about stewardship? Yes.
I'm not understanding like a campaign. How do you describe a campaign?
So the campaign has to follow a mission and a vision, right? So if there's something that's particularly meaningful or important, I would start shaping the campaign around that. So, that the frankincense, gold, and myrrh was one campaign where the theme is that people can get their teeth around it. To send a letter out with a scripture that has to do with stewardship is just a fail, right? So, but if there's something that's dear to your congregation or part of your building or a new mission that you're doing, that's where you want to wrap your campaign around it so people really see. Because people will give money to two things first and foremost. What are they? Sorry? Mission and brick and mortar. Yep. So I was at my previous call for like 16 and a half years. And so you find something that people are really excited about, and then you craft your campaign around that. And obviously it's always very helpful to have folks get up and say, here's why I give, here's why I tithe, or let me tell you a story. One powerful witness was from a guy who, he's got the biggest personality in the world. He was on Broadway for about 6 months in, I think, Old Calcutta, which I think is nudity in it actually. But anyway, and now he's an NHL hockey referee, no lie, okay? But he got up and told a story about why he continues to give to the church, because a friend of his got him into a business venture and they lost all of their savings. And the church was there to support him and love him and not judge him and invite them for meals, run their kids to school, give some loans to help them get another car. So those kind of witness stories are really, really powerful. Yeah.
So I've been to Stewardship Kaleidoscope too.
Uh-huh.
Do you adhere to the narrative budget and the whole long campaign thing, or?
I think there's a place for that. It all depends on the congregation and how transparent you are. If you can find a way to make the narrative budget a living thing, I think that's more interesting. I think bars and graphs are comfortable for some people, but it's really only the small population that is really interested in that. Telling stories is a much bigger way. And then, culmination with communion is always a really good thing to do as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually sitting in a UPC church this week, and I was looking at their bulletin, and they had a listing of the weekly giving and whether they need to, now do you suggest that?
Yeah. So that's something that people constantly said, thank you for letting us know. Some churches do it all year long. My previous church only did it when we were getting down to the grind because, fourth quarter,
End of the year.
right, end of year, and that's most of the giving in the fourth quarter comes when?
Christmas.
And it's not because of Christmas, it's because of
IRS.
IRS and
Yeah.
bonuses, exactly right. So people don't know how much they can give. But this man who was so smart that when Enron collapsed, he was in my congregation, when Enron collapsed, he went in as the acting CFO. Okay, that's how smart he is. But he was also a really dedicated Christian. He was a child of the church, and every Christmas morning, after they opened their gifts, he and his wife would sit down and say, okay, now I know what my bonus is. How much are we going to give to the church?
Just as a side, because I was in financial sales,
Uh-huh.
big bonuses of the higher folks come in February.
So thank you for
And
that.
you do
Yes.
not- They don't know
Right.
in December.
Right.
So actually for the bank,
Yes.
their largest time for taking in deposits is before the end of March.
So
January, February. That's their,
there's a really smart pastor who I got to know from Princeton Seminary, and she's up in Massachusetts now, and she went to the Kellogg School to get an MBA. She does the stewardship campaign in February, but she said it's very hard to sell because of that very fact. And if you know your congregation and it works for them, then do it. But if your congregation is small and you have a lot of folks who are on a limited income, getting them excited and helping them be part of something bigger and having a craft or something connected to it, I think is just as meaningful because, giving is a spiritual practice. And if we are living out of scarcity, then that's where our faith is, right? That there's never going to be enough. And so that's a really important mindset to help your congregation recognize. Because even people who are wealthy are still fearful that they're going to run out of money. So my first career, believe it or not, was leasing corporate aircraft. I was out of White Plains for a while, and out of Morristown and Teterboro to the world's wealthy. One of my clients was William E. Simon. Who was William E. Simon? Sorry? No, close. William E. Simon. He was a Secretary of the Treasury under Ford. He got into a business of leverage buyouts, right? Where you go in, buy these companies, break them up and sell them. He was part of that evil empire back in the 80s. This guy had more money than God. He had an airplane, like a mid-size private jet. This guy drove a Rolls Royce, a green Rolls Royce. It had a bumper sticker. I heart $. Even he is fearful of his money. Now I have to say, when he died, before he died, he put a big addition on the Morristown Hospital in honor of his wife, and then he gave $50 million to the Knights of Malta. So in the end, he did good. But that's an interesting organization as well. I guess he did his bit. But it doesn't mean just people who are just pensioners who are worried about money. And so the more you get them engaged and feeling the joy of giving, because we all know that even when we dig deep, something else comes from another place unexpected. And I was preaching on this when I was, even before in seminary, and I told this story about, I knew how important it was to give to the church, but I was really struggling. And I just made a commitment to do it. And I got a letter about 6 weeks later from my car company, and they said, so sorry, we overcharged you. Here's $680 check. Right? So I think, I'm not going to say it's transactional that God rewards us, quid pro quo, but I think there's something to the paying attention to living out of abundance and trusting that God will provide for us and help us to find a way where sometimes there seems to be none. That's fine.
Amen.
Is there like a standard benchmark or average that we can compare like our congregation's stewardship to others? Because I feel like we don't really know where we stand comparatively to everyone, or if it's our congregation because of the size of it, this is the norm in this size.
That's a complicated question. Can you tell me a little bit more?
So I guess like in terms of us, when we budgeted, we always kind of be transparent and say, hey, we're like 50% there by Q1. But when we did like a survey in terms of how much we were giving comparatively to everyone in the Presby, we were kind of like shocked, like, oh, well, we're kind of below the average of where income-wise or like benchmarks in terms of how our congregation is giving. So that kind of gave us a bit higher benchmark. Oh, actually, we have a bigger goal in mind that we can reach potentially in the future. How do we compare against other Presbys in the same group?
Just to clarify, that was a study of as percent of income.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Our giving versus the percent of income that people are reporting, and we were coming in
A little under.
as an opportunity for improvement.
What does Scripture say about this? I'd say the first scripture that comes to mind is cast your net on the other side of the boat. But I think to get up with comparisons is probably not where we want to go. Although, again, I have to say that the younger generations really like this idea of competition. And competition comes even in Sunday school formats and in outreach events where the younger families, I mean, like cornhole, right? I can't tell you how much money we raised when we had a cornhole tournament. But everybody north of 70 is like, I don't like competition. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's part of the church. I'm like, oh, were you the last one who chose it? So I would say if you can find something compelling, I mean, sometimes we say, give just until it hurts, but that's not biblical either. That's just, I don't know. I'd have to chew on that a little bit. Anybody else have any thoughts about that?
I think this one number, we'll take our average. This is what the average person in the congregation gives. As you say that number, then they know whether you're talking about 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. They kind of want to know what you're asking.
Well, okay, so if you want to, you can have your financial secretary do an analysis of all the givers and say that the top 10 givers average give $10,000 a year. And then the next level down drops to about usually somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a year. And then all the rest give under $250.
I thought there used to be Presbyterian Statistical Services would provide what medium and average, what Presbyterians across the country would give.
They do. I haven't looked at that report in a long time because when I did it the last time, which is probably 10 years ago now, it wasn't accurate. Did you ever thought, Deb, about that?
I do. Who all has done a Holy Cow assessment?
Yeah.
So that information will compare you to thousands of other congregations across the country. So it will give you a good idea of where you land for whatever it's worth. I'll say that, but it does give you a good idea of where you land with congregations your size, and it does we have an interpretation which is important for that. It's not just a number, but we do provide that. And if you've done that, which 50 out of 70 congregations have done it.
Did you partner with them?
I'm sorry?
Did you partner with them in this Presbyterian?
For what?
With Holy Cow?
Oh, no, we have, yes.
Okay.
in a roundabout kind of way, but we do pay for the Holy Cow to be done.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
good. Okay.
Yeah. And
Great.
so that information is out there.
Well, that's helpful.
And you can ask for it.
That's how we knew we had the opportunity
yeah.
for improvement.
The Presbyterian stats are a little wonky. Even when I went back to them and said, hey, this doesn't look right, they're like, well, she's not until next Thursday. It's just like, Yes, sir.
I do think our single greatest motivator is understanding what other people are doing.
Yeah.
So I think of the study, that in a hotel worked with different floors, and on one floor said, would you would you keep your towel and reuse it again?
What generation are you in? I'm just curious.
I'm Gen X.
That's what I thought.
Right. The next floor said, would you please help us save the earth by reusing
Right.
your towels? Next floor said 76% of the people who stayed on this floor have reused their towels.
Right.
And then the best floor said, 76% of people who stayed in this room, number 311, reused their towels. Exponentially, people participated in the program if they thought other people were doing it.
So I made the boomers by 6 weeks. There, I said.
Congratulations.
All right? That doesn't motivate me. I'm inspired by it, but I don't really care whether one person is reusing their towels. I know that that's what I want to do. And so that's where you're getting back to the generational giving, and the mindset behind that is, again, muy importante.
I would just caution, you don't want to tell people the average donation cross donation for churches is 2.75%.
Right.
Because anybody giving 3
Yeah, it's like,
is going
hey,
to coast.
exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did a many years ago. I did a stewardship drive where it was 1%, and it was take whatever your income is,
Step it up, right?
step it up 1%.
Yep.
Now, relatively few people did a whole percent, but they got the message about, oh, I can increase it based on my income.
And you never know. Individual situations happen along the way where, Aunt Betsy passes away and I didn't know it was in her will and I got 10 grand. So yeah, I'm going to make another large contribution to the church this year. So it's very, very circumstantial, but I think again, the paying and also preaching, you've got to preach, your pastor has to preach about money. I have a colleague I saw the other night and he's been cared for by a lot of parishioners who have been previous parishioners. I mean, they bought him a car. I think they put a deposit down in his condo. But he says to me, I hate money. I hate the feel of it. I hate to talk about it. And I said to my brethren, that's why I never have any of it. So I think the pastor has to have a healthy relationship with money as well, and be willing to talk about it and to press people a little bit. And also to step up and say, okay, here's what I'm doing. Right? I think that's an important part of it too. Not every pastor is comfortable with it, but if they really hate it, have them call me. I'll talk them off the ledge. All right, other thoughts about stewardship? Yes.
I just a question. Should the pastor know who the large givers are?
The jury is still out. 50-50. And I think that's still the case. I think the foundation, when they talk about it at the Kaleidoscope, who is that Kaleidoscope? You are, right? It's 50-50. I believe personally that in tall steeple churches, it's a little bit easier because then you know who's committed to getting stuff done. But that can also then create a committee inside a committee of special people. And I grew up in a tall steeple church, and I had Fortune 50 CEOs in my church, and it was not a healthy thing. I personally decided I don't want to know because it just gets in my head when I've given them tremendous pastoral care and then they don't treat me like I hope.
Ooh.
It's not helpful. Now, other personalities can look at it differently, but I don't recommend it, but it's a pastoral and a session conversation. Yeah?
Was the question about the pastor knowing the general giving or individual?
No, individual.
Oh, yeah, that's...
What would the purpose be in that?
So the thought, when I started in stewardship 20 years ago and the foundation suits were doing most of the training, they felt like it was appropriate to then and say, okay, Linda, now that I'm going to make you the wealthy woman, right? Say, hey, Linda, I'm going to take you out to lunch and then hold your hands. Linda, I know you could do a little bit more this year. Like, I came from the corporate world. I'm not saying that. I was in sales and private jets. I'm still not having that conversation. I still think it's a spiritual practice. Yep. Okay. I forgot how much more we have to go. Let's see what time it is. Okay. Yes. My other favorite topic, per capita. When I mentioned that, you could hear a pin drop. Do you have any questions about this, and do you have success in getting per capita? I can't believe how much your per capita funds in this presbytery. I was shocked. Now, the presbytery I'm in, Presbytery of Northeast New Jersey, we actually reduced per capita this year.
Can you explain what that number means? I'm not familiar with what per capita.
Yes.
So how much person gives, the average of what
It-
person
No.
We don't want to call it this, but it's a head tax. It's a head tax. It's got a 2-year delay for every member of a Presbyterian church.
Yes, okay.
The Presbyterian. Now, you must know that most churches outside of the Northeast don't have per capita. They only have mission budgets. Isn't that interesting?
Is this in addition to the Synod and GA per capita too?
I can't imagine, this number has to be because per capita is around 40, 45 in our area. So this must be your local
Just
25,
per
yeah. But your website, the Presbyterian website didn't give the total number. Yes?
The big question we always have every year is, do we send people letters? Because I was years ago,
Oh,
we
yes,
sent people letters, this is what the per capita is, and then people would come back and say, well, just take me off the rolls, I'll quit, and then you don't have to pay
Oh,
for me.
wow.
So we said, forget it, we're not doing that anymore.
Okay, but if that person is no longer active and they're gonna save the church $40, okay, if you're not coming,
No, but that wasn't,
We wish
that
you
wasn't
well.
the case, or it was like, I'll be a member, my kids won't, or something. So people were offended, some people were offended because we you can still consider yourself a member. It's just a touchy situation.
it is delicate. I had a family in my previous church, 6 children. But they were one of the largest contributors in the church. And they made sure that they paid for all their kids. And so every year they'd get up and say, okay, now we've got 4 that we're paying for. So friends, don't forget you have to pay for your children as well. Or help your children as adults understand that there's a connection and a responsibility to the church. But sometimes it's a matter of just having someone from stewardship or finance get up and just talk about what per capita is and why it's important, instead of hearing it from a letter or a phone call.
Does
And
everybody here send out letters?
Never.
yeah,
Not like
Yeah.
that.
you could do. We had a lot of success with e-blasts, and then even text blasts. And then I got a little crazy in my previous church, and I had my secretary and we figured out these lists. Okay, who gets snail mail, and only snail mail. Now those are your per capita givers, right? But then you also have people who don't read their emails. And I get per capita checks like in November because they finally realize, oh, so sorry. Because, hey, gents, can you hang on or just raise that with the whole group?
Oh, sorry.
It looks like it's important.
No, go ahead. This is my first year as the finance elder,
Okay.
and I've always wondered about the amount that we pay to the presbytery, and I'm becoming more and more familiar with it that it's an amount based on our membership.
Correct.
And I've always
From
asked
2 years prior.
And I've always asked the question, in the interest of us paying a lower amount, why could we take a different approach to counting our membership? People that just come every Sunday. I mean, how do you count that number?
Well, it's whoever's on the rolls. Okay. On your membership rolls.
Yeah.
Okay. I do recommend that you have your rolls clean from time to time. I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah.
I have some tall steeple pastor friends who don't like to do that because then it puts their church in a different category.
Yeah.
But that's about ego more than anything else. And hey, if you can afford to pay your $80,000 per capita, knock yourself out. But sorry, my ADD is kicking in. So I think you'd have to ask Deb, but I think 7% on top of this still goes to the Synod, but maybe somewhere between 4 and 7. And then
Some goes to missions, right? GA.
what's that?
Some goes to the missions.
So the largest, I can't remember the math so well now. I know 7%, 4 to 7% generally goes to the Synod, and then a pile of money goes to the GA, and that's usually for missions. It all depends on what the GA spends it on. Even different presbyteries, like this is a big list of for 2580. And every presbytery has to determine what's appropriate for them. This is a lot, but let's see. So probably $15 of that is going to go to GA. And if they stop using glossy brochures, you drop that. Yeah, in the back.
So that's the per capita for the Presbyterian. PTA is another 9 something.
There you go.
So total per person is
39, yeah. Yes.
We're still kind of old fashioned too, I guess, because we still use envelopes.
Uh-huh,
So we do have in January, we have a per capita envelope.
yes.
And we do put in the bulletin, how much the per capita is per person.
So here's what's really cool in my former church. There were people who knew about the folks that were struggling to make ends meet, and they'd say, I'm going to pay for this person and their per capita. So if you haven't thought about that, you can recommend that to your congregation, which is really sweet and really touching, because you still have to disperse the money out to the presbytery. You have to pay the bill whether you take in $3,000 or the entire $7,000.
Yeah, 2 things. The envelope, the individual envelope, I do think as we go less paper, we have to be vigilant about the rituals that we had that helped serve those reminders, that helped flex those muscles, that brought to attention the specific giving, that were good little nuances and nudges. And then the others is we've got a family who's housed in a hotel, been living there for a couple of years, and the woman joined the church and she paid her per capita, and I chased her down the parking lot. I said, I noticed you gave this. She said, well, of course I did. You said it was the annual meeting. She said, I'm a member and I need to do this. And I said, yes, you did join this year, right? You do. But I was taking away her dignity. I love the people, though, that pay for people.
You can remind folks, hey, if you know someone in the congregation that it might be a stressor, let us know and, double the check. Did your hand up?
Yes.
Okay.
Just following Lori's point, we always include the per capita amount on the pledge card.
Yeah, right.
For those who use pledge cards. And this Presbyterian has a nice interpretive video of what we get for
Good.
per capita.
Yeah, I think I saw
And it
that,
can be
yeah.
shared in a lot of forums.
Again, you can put it as a bulletin insert. You can put it in the bulletin. I don't think I finished the question about it feels like 6 hours ago. About 15 minutes ago. Yes, I encourage you, if you want, here's our monthly budget. Here's how much. Here's where we're at. Here's the shortfall. People really find that helpful. I've never heard someone say to me, I can't believe you're putting that in the bulletin. They always say, I find it helpful.
Just the old traditions. Even passing the plate's been a little awkward at our church because so many give digitally.
Yeah.
That you see one elder after another just pass it on, and it actually tells people you don't need to put money in the plate.
So there's one of the big churches in Denver. One of the big churches in Denver, downtown. I don't know, was there a GA there or something? But they have this this card that's laminated. So you can put something in the plate and say, I give online, so that everybody sees the action of that. But I know some people who take the envelope out of that little holder and then just put it in the plate, even though there's nothing in it, because they're just mortified and they don't do it. Yeah. Did you have a question? No. Oh.
You said something about cleaning the books. This has been a discussion in our church for a while. Can you, besides someone who has deceased and what's another definition of cleaning the books? Because we have people they're not active.
Right.
They don't always pay the per capita. We're paying the per capita for them. We haven't seen them in 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, but then when you approach them about it, they're like, no, I still want to be a member of the church. And I'm like, look, keep them on the emails, keep them on all that literature, but in the sense of reporting it, like, we're not going to put you on the docket. But I mean, your definition of cleaning the books, it's kind of vague. It's vague.
Okay, so let me be a little more specific, okay? The Book of Order has changed a number of times now. My former clerk, that was like her thing. As soon as I got back from vacation in August, boom, come to my house for lunch. And I always did this with lunch. We had to go through the whole roll. What about this one, this one, this one? I did it with her almost for 17 years. I think it's a good idea because sometimes the member has forgotten to tell you that they've moved away or that they are away for another reason. So we do it like a first pass. And then I say, don't touch this person, don't touch this person, don't touch this person, because I know something that is not to be publicized, right? I'll call these 3 or 4 people and just check in and say, hey, how you doing? Everything all right? We miss seeing you. And then the rest who haven't been there, who we don't want to remove, we send them a lovely letter, which again I can send you all because we've crafted it over time. Actually, do I still have it? Oh, I have it on my hard drive somewhere. But to craft a letter, and then that's an excuse for a phone call or a follow-up. Sometimes you get a response, sometimes you don't. But there are some people who don't have the courage to say, no, I don't want to be here any longer, or worship has changed so much, I don't recognize the new hymns, the music is too modern, but I still want to be buried here, so you have to let folks just, but you can clean the rolls every year or two, and sometimes church members forget that their kids who are finished college and are already married and living in Louisiana, they forgot to take them, take my son off, I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
Are affiliate members church?
Thank you. So that's the other option is, if you'd like to become an affiliate member, we'll keep you connected to our church,
Right.
and you receive all of our mailings and all of our, goodies, but it releases you from the responsibility of per capita and you lose voice and vote. I don't say it like that, but you know what I mean.
I understood that an affiliate member had to be a member of a Presbyterian church somewhere to be an affiliate member of your church.
One moment, please.
Kind of like,
That's what
Compass at the snowbirds.
We were told.
There we go.
Knew I was going to need this.
Wait a minute, you didn't memorize this already?
You know
I'm
what?
shocked.
Listen, I did when I took my polity exam, and that was before fog, so now I don't know where anything is.
Shocking.
No, I really did have it memorized. I was pretty good with it, but everything's new. And of course, it used to be like this thick, right?
Yeah.
I thought we had done away with affiliates.
That voice and vote thing's important. I served a church who was looking to dissolve the pulpit and relinquish the property back to the Presbyterian. And long-standing families who had homes around the church were motivated by the Holy Spirit to come to that meeting for the first time in a generation, and they blocked that. But you have power in the voice and vote, and you need to consider if the people who have the voice and vote really represent the spirit of the active congregation.
So here's one of these things. And again, we all know that we love the Book of Law. I mean, I sleep with it underneath my pillow. Not everybody does.
It has been known to create slumber.
We also, that's true, especially in the disciplinary section. We try to abide by this as best as we can, right? So it reads, and you're not wrong, is a member of another congregation of this denomination or another denomination or Christian body who is temporarily moved from the community where the congregation of membership is situated, has presented a certificate of good standing from the appropriate council, blah, 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 and or has been received as an affiliate member somewhere else. I don't think that's going to happen. If you're struggling financially, I think this is a good option for people who want to stay connected without hurting their feelings, and either they can't afford to pay per capita or it's just not a good career move to remove them. It's an option. But there's some morals in this as well, right? What do you say? There's a moral code here. Yeah. Yes.
Do you recommend writing to everybody or something, some kind of contact? Is that?
No, so I really recommend the first pass with your clerk, determining who really needs to be contacted. Sometimes you can choose somebody else who has a really nice relationship with that person because, not everybody loves the pastor. I was devastated when I learned that. But sometimes it happens, right? So maybe it's a good connection or, they see them at tennis on Tuesday nights. I have this exact example. 3 of them are together at tennis. And we kept saying, hey, go see Elaine, when you're playing tennis. Like, does she still want to stay connected? Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to come back to church. And then the rest of the list where we don't contact them or they're, we're not going to touch this family. Then a letter goes out, beautifully written, very gentle. My clerk wrote a letter that was like, get back to church. I softened a little bit, but, and then you follow up. You follow up. It's only a handful of people anyway, you know?
But it's
They
an
just want to come on
opportunity
Zoom.
to
Yeah.
say, this is what we're doing and
Yeah.
how are you doing
Or-
it? Right.
Well, Rev Jen, I didn't want to tell you this, but I'm getting divorced and it's really been a rough go. Oh gosh, well, no wonder why we haven't seen you, and I'm so sorry because she's embarrassed, right? Or they're battling an illness that they don't want to talk about. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people stop coming to church, especially post-COVID. Boy. Let me just check the rest of my slides, and then I'll stay after if you have any more questions that I haven't addressed. Ah, yes, we do want to talk about this.
Ah, yes.
Right. Okay. I'm not an expert on this. I know a little bit. The pros of Zelle or Zelly and Venmo are that it's an ease of giving. It reaches Gens X, Y, and Z. It tells them that we're hip, we're cool, we're aware. You can put a QR code on your website and in your bulletin if you haven't done so. Ease of tracking. The fees are fairly reasonable. The foundation also does that for us, but their fees are higher. It comes with more bells and whistles. Most churches decide not to use the foundation, but some do. And again, I think they're trying to catch up with modernity. Yes.
We use the foundation, but the problem is it's okay for recurring giving from a congregation member, but the person that passes in and out of the church on a Sunday there's too much work for them to give
Yes,
that way.
exactly. And so then, and there's a church management software. Does anybody here use Breeze yet? Oh, you're gonna love this. All right, first of all, I just Googled this, and again, this will be in the presentation. These are all live links, but I found it fascinating that Breeze, church management software, is not on it. And I highly recommend it. And this is the big finish. It's called Breeze because thank you, Elizabeth, because it's so hard to use. No, it's easy to use. Come on, I know it's getting ready for lunchtime. All your member contacts are on your phone. So no one calls me and says, Rev Jen, do you have Betty's email address? You can text from there, you can email from there, you can donate from there. There are drop-down menus that you can set up to pay for your flowers when you put flowers in the church on a Sunday, or pay for the birthday cake of the 100-year-old member.
Is that Power Church?
I'm sorry?
Does that take the place of something like Power Church?
I'm not familiar with Power Church, I have to tell you.
Yeah, our church has been using it forever.
Is that contact management software?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, I'd like to get something better, but go ahead.
This is. I'm telling you, this is great. You can go online, Google. It's Breeze Church Management, and this is the logo, so you can recognize it. Because Breeze itself is another organization, another. If someone can Google it right now, I don't have my internet.
Church management.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't have it in my current church because I'm just there short term, but is anyone Googling it? Okay. What does it say? Is it Breeze Church Management?
Yeah, this is one of the ones that I did look at recently, but we ended up going with Planning Center. That seems to be another one that's widely used out there.
What I love about what I love about this is that it's scalable, it's affordable, and you can create lists inside there and you can do instant e-blasts, instant text blasts. You can put your pictures in there, your home addresses, directions to get to Elder so-and-so's house. You can even, my clerk, the first thing she did was erase her birth year, which I thought was hilarious. But there's so much stuff, and you can go online now and get a free demo. I haven't used it because in my former church, but it was, and you can transfer all of your old financial files onto this. I mean, it's really a
Breeze.
Thank you. I should have brought some candy to throw today. But there's these new elements now since I left my last church. You can do worship planning on the app with one another. There's blog capacity, which I don't really know much. I mean, I know about blogging, but I don't know how you do it. But this is a new button. You can manage all your volunteers for a big event like I've got at my church tonight. Or even data transfer, which had to be manually done when we put it in.
About,
8 years maybe.
oh, it's not that.
What's tech support like?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's so easy to use, you don't need it.
That's right. I could.
Free support when you need it, $72 a month, unlimited number.
Yeah, I think that's like the Cadillac, right?
Yeah.
But I think there are scalable packages that are less than that. But I highly recommend that you look at that. I just got the 5-minute call. Has this been helpful?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
How about an email?
My email. All right, I'm going to write it down for you because it's very long.
And if you could send us, if we send you a note saying, please send me, will you send it?
Of course.
Or will you know from your Breeze account?
I don't have Breeze with my current.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Just one question on all these apps. It seems that every app that they sign up for, first of all, this one signs up for this app, it's got this email address, it's got this phone number. But the hard part is they want third-party authentication, and they want to do it with a cell phone, and churches don't have cell phones. So consequently, at least half of our apps have my cell phone number, because I don't know what else to do. The pastor had everything, when she left, I had to move everything to something else. So that kind of information, and everybody, this one needs an app for that, and they sign up over there, and this one had Zoom, and this one had MailChimp, and this one had GoDaddy, so I'm getting that back together again, but they all have my phone number on.
I have your phone number too, by the way. Listen, I haven't used the app in about 18 months. No, actually,
But I'm not talking about just this app. I mean, how do people deal with it? Do they have a
Here's
cell
the
phone
point.
for the
Here's what I'm trying to say.
third party?
I was using this app a year ago, and that was not a problem, and two-step authentication was already there. But this is one of the biggest church management software companies out there. I'm sure they figured that out because they know the problem, because they're church management. They're not like generic. So I think that they probably figured a workaround for that.
But how do other people deal with that on your other apps?
Yeah, if someone comes up with a solution for that, share it at a presentation. Because then it's hard to change the phone number when you're dealing with a system, be it Zoom, be it Gmail, whatever it is. It's hard. So it's an issue beyond Breeze. And I don't know what the
Passwords
solution
and phone
is.
numbers and third party authentication and emails.
This is my email address. Just my name, Jen Van Zandt, don't need caps. It's just jenvanzant@gmail.com.
No spaces.
For
No
smaller churches, what is the minimum cast of characters you should have on the finance side?
I would say take everybody who has passion and knowledge to offer.
No, I'm just saying, you need to have a treasurer.
Right?
You need to have a separate person that's like doing the books.
Financial secretary.
Financial secretary. That
Right.
could be your church administrator.
Okay,
Church
could be.
secretary, could be.
Could be. I don't recommend it, but it could be.
So it should be somebody different.
Yeah, you really want a treasurer, a financial secretary. That's the person who counts the cash and keeps the contributions. Your church admin, whether she's hopefully not a church member, but some churches have her as a church member, or him, is just church administrator. And then you have a finance committee of people who are in those fields, in banking, in investments, or just have a passion for it. So I would say a minimum of 3 plus your staff.
Your church admin's not a member?
I'm sorry?
The church admin's not a member?
No.
Interesting.
No, because they're impossible to manage if they're a church member and they vote on your compensation. Right now, I have a staff of 10. 3 of them are church members. It's interesting. Yes.
I defer.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you.
Yeah.
The treasurer, session member?
No, he should not. He or she should not be. Yeah, and make sure you elect them every year.
Review, I would publicly note who your signatories are on various accounts, because people die and you end up with nobody left authorized to, on your investments, your checking,
That's
the
so funny.
like.
I had that in my outline. I'm like, they know
Yeah.
that, but no, it's a good.
Yeah.
It's a really good reminder. Yeah. Anything else?
This was excellent. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm so glad. I'm glad. Listen, if you want to have more fun, come to the afternoon. Now I'm talking about personnel this afternoon.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
See you there.
All right.
Can I reserve my seat?
Yeah, can I print this out?
Yes.
Is that back here by the way?
Property.
It's upstairs in another room. I don't
Can I
know
reserve my
why.
seat?
In the chapel.
Is it the chapel?
I think so.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, let us
The
pray.
clerks are busy.
Almighty and loving God, we thank you for the fine minds that are in this room and the care they have over your church and the things that make it work and function. Now give them ease and peace knowing that they are not alone. They have new tools to play with and new policies to bring home to make sure that we continue to not only be loving, but doing things decently in order. And let all God's people say,
Amen.
All right.